Hello everyone, if you'll turn your Bibles to Mark chapter 6. Mark chapter 6. As we continue our study of the miracles of Jesus, the miracle we're going to study today, probably one of the most famous of Jesus' miracles of all of them, of Jesus feeding the 5,000 plus. Of Jesus' recorded 35 miracles that are in the Gospels, this is the only one that's recorded in all four Gospels. All four give a little more detail than the other, so I'm going to kind of combine all of those accounts to tell the story today. Very familiar story. If you've been in church, you've heard this story, so I know you know the story, and you may think I already know everything about this story. And maybe you do, but maybe you'll be reminded of something today that you needed to learn again, or maybe you'll learn something new that you hadn't thought about before. Biblical scholars believe that there were it says at the end of this story that there were 5,000 men, plus women and children. And most of them think that there were about 15 to 20,000 at this event. Most of the time when we think about Jesus and we think about his teaching, it's the 12 plus a small group. You know, kind of like our Sunday school class. It's like those 12 and then like 30 or 40 come up and he teaches them and then he goes on. But Jesus is very popular at this time, and the crowds are just following him everywhere. And that's kind of what had happened here. The first part of Mark chapter 6, verses 6 through 13, Jesus sends the 12 out to teach on their own, sends them out in pairs. And it says he gave them power to teach and to perform miracles. And it says that they cast out demons and they healed many that were sick and lame. Then they come back. Jesus just stays where he is and he just teaches to a small group there. And the disciples come back, verse 30 and 31 of Mark chapter 6, and they tell him about their experience. Let me read that. It says, the apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done and taught. Then, because so many people were coming and going, they did not even have a chance to eat. He said to them, come with me by yourself to a quiet place and we will get some rest. So Jesus and the 12, they're hungry. They've been working all day. They're tired and they're hungry, and they said, let's go eat. I don't know where they're going. They're going around the lake somewhere. Maybe there's a fish place over there to eat, and they're going to go over there and eat. But in verse 32 it says, so they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. But many who saw them leaving recognized them and ran on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. They saw the way they were going, and they said, they're going over there to the fish place on the other side of the lake to eat. Let's go over there and catch them. And so they all run over there to meet them. All these people have no idea that they're about to participate in a great miracle. They just want to hear Jesus teach, and maybe they might see a miracle, but they don't all know that they're going to participate in this miracle. We've already said why Jesus and the 12 went over there. It says they went over there to rest. But I like what it says in verse 34. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. I like that it says that he had compassion on them. Jesus is hungry. He's tired. The 12 are hungry. They're tired. But Jesus, it says, has compassion on them. He sees them as a sheep without a shepherd. These people, all they know are what the Pharisees tell them about the law and everything that they do wrong. That's all the Pharisees tell them. You did this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, shame on you. Shame on you, shame on you, shame on you. That's all they hear. And Jesus teaches in a different way, and he gives them hope, and he teaches about grace and mercy. And they've never heard some of this stuff. There's no real teaching about the scriptures, really, from the Pharisees. It's just law. Do this, don't do this. Jesus gives them hope. First, it says he taught them many things. So he has everybody sit down, and he just starts preaching. We don't know how long this sermon was. It's not recorded what he said. It said he taught them many things. He feeds them spiritually first. By this time, verse 35, it says, by this time it was late in the day. So it's late in the day. Maybe the sun's starting to go down. These, like I already said, the disciples, they're hungry. They're probably getting hangry at this point. They're a little angry and hungry. And their comments to Jesus are as follows. So his disciples came to him, Jesus, and they said, this is a remote place. It's already very late. You send the people away so they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat. The disciples have a plan. Send everybody home. And Jesus, you're the one that's going to tell them. Let's have a invitational hymn, and we'll sing 3 verses, and we'll have a little prayer, and we'll say, okay, we'll see y'all next week. And just send them all away. They're all hungry. We're hungry. Send them to the store, send them to the restaurant, send them somewhere, send them home. Obviously, we can't feed them here. So send them out. It says we're in a remote place. We're out in the middle of nowhere. There's nowhere to buy food anyway. Verse 37, you see Jesus' answer to the disciples. But he answered them, you give them something to eat. And they're probably thinking, well, how am I going to do that? There's nothing for me. I have nothing. Nobody here has anything that we can see. How am I going to give them anything to eat? In John chapter 6, verses 5 through 7, we get a little more detail about this story. And Jesus says, when Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, where should we buy bread for all these people to eat? He asked this only to test him, for he already had in his mind what he was going to do. Jesus knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 8 months' wages will not buy enough bread for each one to have a bite. We don't know if Philip was making an exaggeration or if he had done some quick calculations in his head. If it's 8 months' wages, say maybe in today's money, you make $1,000 a week. Well, that's $32,000 it was going to cost them to feed all these people. Later on in this story, it seems the disciples seem to indicate they have the money to do this. And they kind of asked Jesus, do you really want us to go buy something to feed these people? So maybe they had the money. But really the only logical way that the disciples see for this to get out of this is to send them home. And we would have said the same thing. But what did Philip forget in the other 12, the other 11? They forgot to figure Jesus into the equation, into the problem and the solution. He doesn't factor in Jesus. It says in John's account, Jesus already knew what he was going to do. Philip forgot who he's serving here. He forgot who he's talking to. He forgot the miracles he's already seen before. Philip and the disciples focus on their lack of ability, their lack of resources, and they don't focus on the power that they already know that Jesus has. Mark chapter 6, verse 37, that question, it seems like the disciples say, are we going to go and spend that much on bread and give it to them to eat? So they seem to think they can come up with the money, but they don't think that's a good idea to spend that much money just to feed these people. Maybe some people, some of us worked at First Baptist on Wednesday, feeding a lot of people that came through. And maybe some people looked at that and thought First Baptist Church spent a lot of money for that, and that they could have spent that on something else. That was a good thing, yeah, but they could have spent that money on something else, and surely there was something else they could have done with it. But everyone I talked to, everyone I saw in the car that came by, other people that volunteered, everybody said that everybody was grateful, everybody was friendly, and First Baptist did a good thing by serving those people by giving them food. And I think it was a very good thing that we did in a very good way to spend that money. Verse 38 of Mark 6, it says, how many loaves do you have? Go and see. When they found out, it said they had 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Well, in John's account, he tells us what happened in that account. John 6, verse 8, it says, another of his disciples, Andrew, Peter's brother, spoke up. Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will this go among so many? Apparently, Andrew found this boy who had a little sack lunch. 5 loaves, 2 fish. From what I understand about this 5 loaves, it's like 5 pieces of, like, small pieces of cornbread, 5 little rolls, and maybe 2 like small, maybe like sardine type fish. Very sardine and crackers kind of meal. It would be an appetizer for probably one person today. I don't know if it seems like Andrew brings the boy up, and this is part of the story that I've kind of thought about this week as I've thought about this miracle. I think this boy stands here by Jesus during this whole event, and he stands there while his lunch is multiplied, and he's standing there right there the whole time. Think about that. He's standing there seeing his lunch being multiplied by Jesus. That's probably I guarantee you he never forgot that. You notice that it says, then Jesus directed them to have all the people sit down in groups on the grass. The disciples have no idea what's going on, but they obey. They do what Jesus tells them to do. Andrew's statement here kind of about the boy said, this is all we got, so send them home already. That's kind of what he's saying. But they obey Jesus. They think maybe this is a waste of time. They don't know what's going on. But Jesus has them to organize the crowd. And you see there in verse 40, it says they sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties. Why does Jesus do that in groups of 50s and hundreds? Well, I think there's a practical reason that when the food starts coming out and all these people are hungry, and you got 20,000 people that are hungry, and they see food and they start hearing about food, they start smelling food, they're going to get trampled up here, the disciples, as they're passing this out. So Jesus wants organization. Also, one thing I thought about with this is just a random grouping of these people. He doesn't sit blacks over here and whites over here and browns over here. He doesn't sit men over here and women over here, Democrats over here, Republicans over here. None of that. This is just a random grouping. Jesus just this is just for organization. This is no segregation. It's just organization. Verse 41, you see that Jesus blesses. He took the 5 loaves, 2 fish, looked up to heaven, gave thanks, and then he sends out the disciples with the food. How did this miracle work? What are the specifics about how it worked? As he sends the 12 out, you would assume that each of the disciples has a basket and he goes out and delivers, maybe comes back. He has to come back and get some more, doesn't he? Or when somebody reaches in the basket, does it just keep reappearing in the basket? I don't know. I also thought about, just think about the size of this crowd. And I was trying to think of, there's not a venue in Texarkana that seats 15 to 20,000 that I know of. But I was trying to think, well, if everybody was sitting on the ground surrounding First Baptist, our building, if we're sitting in the parking lot, all the way around the soccer field, all around the back, to the ball field, just all the way around, people are sitting on the ground. That's probably would be 15, 20,000 people in that area. You may remember when used to have fireworks there years ago, and the crowds that were all out there. That'd kind of be probably like what it was. How long did this take to pass out the food? That's another thing I thought about. You know, we think about this and they just passed it out and then they gathered up the leftovers. This took a minute for them to go through the process of passing out the food. Maybe Jesus just reached in the boy's sack, and every time he reached in the sack, he pulled out food every time. Maybe Jesus just reached in the sack 15 or 20,000 times. I don't know the process. But it says that, verse 42, all ate, plus everyone was satisfied. Everyone got enough to eat. And then in verse 43 it says, Jesus instructed the disciples to gather the leftovers, and it said that they gathered 12 baskets full. Each of the 12 would have had some, and I guess Jesus would have had some too, after this was over, for them to eat. The disciples probably don't know what just happened. They saw it happen. They don't know. They know Jesus did it, but they don't know how it happened. They know it's a miracle, but they just don't really know the process that happened here. And that's kind of what a miracle is even today. We recognize it. That's a miracle. We don't really know how it happened, but we know God did a work. That's what happened here. It's only a work that could be explained by the power that Jesus had here. What are some lessons we can learn from this very familiar story? The first thing that comes to my mind is, do I forget to figure Jesus in to the problem-solution equation? Do I just focus on what I know, what I can do, my abilities, my money, my limitations, my strength? Do I just focus on that? And I figure out if I can do it. And then if I can't do it, I say it's impossible. That's kind of what happened with the disciples here. They focused on the lack of money, the lack of food, the lack of time. It's late in the day. They didn't figure Jesus into the solution problem equation. Only their lack of money, time, and resources was what they were thinking about. Jesus used, another thing that we can think about is Jesus used the 12 to participate in this miracle. First, Jesus tells them, you go feed them. And then they say, wait, I can't do it. And Jesus is like, you're right. But I'm going to let you do it, and I'm going to assist you in this. The disciples say it's impossible. We can't do it. Jesus knows. In John's account, it says he knew what he was going to do. He knows they don't have the ability. He knows they don't have the money, the resources. And they have no idea how to do it. But he knows he's going to use them to do it because he does have the power. He puts them in a position to totally trust in him. They have no option. They can't do this unless he works. And then they see him work. They see his power. Also in this story, a person that kind of gets left out in this story, Jesus gets all the attention and the glory as he should. He's Jesus. The disciples get attention in this story because of what they did wrong and then what they did right. But the boy in this story, he kind of gets lost in the story. I've often thought about Andrew bringing this boy up to Jesus. Did he grab him by the ear and say, boy, get up here. We're going to show Jesus what you got, and we're going to show him that's not enough, and then we're out of here? Or did he take his lunch from him? Did he steal the boy's lunch? And was he kind of mean to him? I don't know. But it seems to indicate that this boy was willing to give his lunch. In John's account, it's what it seems that the boy was willing to give up his lunch. A couple of things we can learn from that is I need to be willing to give up what I have for the kingdom. Give up what I have for God's work. Give my money, give my tithe to the church. And sometimes we might think, what does my $100 a week, $500 a week, whatever you give to First Baptist, what does that matter in the grand scheme of a $7 million budget? Well, all those add up. We couldn't do things like we did Wednesday with the Operation Jerusalem thing that we do occasionally. We couldn't do those things without us all giving our money to the church. Because people at First Baptist are so generous and do give, we can do things like that. Also, we can think about, we give our talent and our service to God. This boy gave, that's probably all he has. And he might have thought, just like everyone else, what difference does it make in the grand scheme here, this small 5 loaves and 2 fish? And you might think, does it matter in the grand scheme, my little thing God wants me to do? If God's called you to serve in a particular area, that's what we need to be doing. Whether it's serving one person or 50, it's still important in God's work. Also, we can see that what we give by our money, what we give by serving, God multiplies that. Jesus multiplied what this boy gave. This little sack lunch fed 5,000 men plus women and children. Not much goes a long way when God puts his hands on it and blesses it. That's what I get mostly from this little boy and his offering here. It wasn't much, but he gave it, God blessed it, and it blessed thousands. How many times do I miss out, you miss out on miracles because we think, what I have to give is not much, so I'm just going to keep it. What I have to offer to someone else, I'm not going to go talk to them today about whatever. How many times do we miss out on something and God says, okay, I'll just pick somebody else to do that work? Or we're like the disciples here, and we just say, it's impossible. I just send them away. Also, you can think about, in closing here, you can think about the disciples needed no special training here to participate in this miracle. What did they have to do? Walk around with a basket and give people food. There was no special training, but they got to participate in this miracle because they did what Jesus told them to do. Simple as that. Sometimes I'm guilty. I'm sure you're guilty. We make things more complicated than they have to be. Just simply do what God tells you to do today and worry about that. And since they did obey, they got to see a great miracle. As we close, if you'll turn to Psalm 121, I want to read this psalm as we close today. Probably a very familiar psalm to you. There's a song we sing at church that has some of these lyrics in it. The first two verses are in 2 or 3 different songs that we sing. I will praise you in the storm. The first couple of verses are in that praise song, and then there's another one we sing. I can't think of the name of it right now at church. Psalm 121, beginning verse 1, it says, I will lift my eyes into the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm, and he will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. Again, thank you for being faithful to watch. I think this is our 12th or 13th week with this, doing video, teaching by video, so I appreciate you watching. And again, contact me or Cindy if we can help you with anything. See you later.